Hello and welcome to Provoking Tech. I'm Zach, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing and walking through the installation of a program called USB Over Network. As the name suggests, USB Over Network will allow you to set up a server computer and with USB devices attached to it, and also set up client computers that you can access those USB devices over your network. So I'm going to be taking this core concept to the next level by installing my server on my local computer, but installing the client on a cloud computer that's going to be hundreds of miles away. So the ideal here in the end result is to be able to have a computer that I can take with me everywhere, a very ultra mobile, like a 2-in-1, and attach different USB devices to it, and not have to really worry about the power of the computer itself because I'll be actually doing all the work in the cloud. But if I could still access some of my USB devices in the cloud flawlessly, then that would be amazing. Like input devices like mouse and keyboard, there's no problem on accessing those in the cloud, but other devices such as webcams and things along those lines don't have a good way to interface with the cloud really at this point. A lot of different programs don't take like USB port forwarding into account, or are still in the early stages of implementing that. So in today's video, what I'm going to be hopefully doing and hopefully accomplishing is allowing USB over network to actually work over the internet from my local computer to a cloud computer, and I will be using the networking tool Hamachi to actually help facilitate this. And if you've never heard of Hamachi and you want more information on that, I can do a video on that in the future too. But it's a tool I've used in the past primarily for gaming. A lot of older games don't have like online, or might have had online in the past matchmaking, but have disabled that because they're older and the developers don't want to support the servers and everything along those lines, or they might have never had online matchmaking, and they've always just had like local matchmaking, and this will allow you to play games as if you're locally, even though you're in different households. So I'll be using a networking tool Hamachi in the background to help bridge my local computer and my cloud computer and get through all the firewalls and everything along those lines. And then hopefully USB over network will allow me to use my USB devices on my local computer onto my cloud computer for the ultimate on-the-go access to a very powerful computer without having to lug around a big huge laptop or something along those lines. So without further delay, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so to get things started, head over to usb-over-network.com, and we're going to download the version for the operating system that you're on, and just take note that the Linux version actually has a different download for the server versus the client, and I'll get to that here in a second as I walk through the full installation process. So I'm going to go ahead and install this. It shouldn't take very long to download. It's only like a 13 megabyte file, so it's not very big at all. And then we'll start walking through the installation process, and you'll see pretty quickly that I'll get to the part that has the distinction between the server and the client. So the server computer is going to be the computer that actually has the USB devices physically plugged into it. So whether that be your USB camera or your microphone or your printer, which there's a lot of ways to share a printer over the network that costs a lot less. But anyways, whatever you have to attach to it, USB flash drive or USB hard drive or something along those lines, you want to set that computer up as the server. All the other computers that are just going to be connecting to those USB devices across the network, those will be set up as clients. The client program is actually completely free. The server program, you will have to buy a license based upon the number of USB devices that you're wanting to actively share at any given time. So this will be kind of sold in chunks. Like you can buy a license for 1 at a time, 2 devices at a time, 4 devices at a time, and I think it goes all the way up to a crazy number like 64 devices at a time. So it kind of scales. It has a couple of different chunks along the way for how many devices you can actually buy at a time. And it's not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. I've tried out some of the cheaper programs though, and I've had some form of combination of flaky experience, less intuitive UI/setup process, or little to no control of which devices you share. Some of the programs actually just share every single USB device that you have attached to your computer, which is probably something you definitely don't want to have shared, unless you're okay with that. And so there are some cheaper alternatives, but this is kind of the middle grounds. There's definitely programs way more expensive than USB over network, so I'm hoping this is like a nice middle grounds that functions and does everything I need it to do. It just might not be the fanciest option out there on the market. All right, so since I'm going to be setting this computer up kind of as just to test the concept to access this over the internet, I'm going to set this up as a server. Right, as I just said, I'm going to be testing this as kind of just on a trial. So I'm going to be just using the trial version. I think it's good for 2 weeks, but I'd have to check that for maybe 100% sure. But I do think it's a 2-week trial. And this computer itself, I won't really be using this if this project does succeed. Like I said in the intro, I'll be installing this more on like a low-end laptop that that'll be taken everywhere, but still might want to have access to my USB devices. I want to be able to plug those devices in and access those on a cloud computer that I'll be connecting to, or even connecting back to my computer at home when I'm on the road or something along those lines. So with that in mind, I'm just going to be installing the trial, and I'm just going to let it go into the default installation path. And it's going to have to download a couple extra things throughout the process. All right, so if there was an abrupt stop, I do apologize for that. I didn't foresee the program stopping all the USB devices, even though I probably should have, because since it's installing USB drivers. But as it's installing, it did stop my webcam and my microphone, but everything's back up now. All I had to do is just relaunch OBS and back on the road. So nothing like, didn't really mess up my setup. It just I had to restart my setup after the installation of the drivers. So now you can see on my screen that I have a list of all my USB devices. So you can see my webcam. I have a backup webcam attached. Just for the purposes of still being able to use a webcam, but also have one set up so I can actually trial this program and see how well it works. You can see that there's a rift. That might be an interesting test, is to actually see if I can share that. That'd be pretty interesting to see if that actually works or not. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and mark my secondary webcam as a shared device. So you just have to right click on a device and shared. It'll say shared but not connected yet because I'm not connected to it yet. And then you can label, and you have a couple different options inside of here. But the biggest thing right here is I have access to what I actually share, and I can actually stop and start sharing devices at any given time. I think the trial only actually gives you one device, but the webcam will be like the most complex that I'm going to be starting off on one to the share. So if it works, then like the microphone and other devices should follow suit. There might be even more complex devices that you want to try, but if one works, hopefully they all will. But once again, you do have access to a trial, so you can try that out and make sure for certain on your own setup. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the cloud computer real quick and see if I can access that device. I do already have Hamachi set up and running, so I have a private network between my local computer and the cloud computer already set up. So I might run through that and setting that up in a separate video in the near future, and just kind of link to this one or vice versa in end credits once I have that up, in case you kind of stumble upon this in the future and you don't really know how to set up Hamachi or set up a different private network program. All right, so I am now connected to my cloud computer. I'm using Parsec to do that. If you haven't heard of Parsec, I have several videos on that, but it's essentially just a super low latency client for connecting to computers over your network or even over the internet. A lot of people use it for gaming, but it's also useful for a lot of other use cases, such as engineering programs like 3D CAD or video editing. Anything you want to have super fluid interactivity with your the remote computer that you're connecting to. As you can see here, I have Hamachi set up. I have a green dot to my my local computer, which is indicating a direct tunnel, and I'm on the server screen right now. So what I'm going to do now is not do what I just did. Click add a server. I'm just going to go ahead and copy the IP4 address of my Hamachi computer. I'm I'm going to go ahead and leave the TCP port as default. I'm not sure if I'm going to need to change that at this point in time. And I'm going to go ahead and connect. So that was that simple. I'm actually surprised it was that simple. I didn't expect that to work. I was figuring I was going to have to connect, change the port or something along those lines and have to troubleshoot all that. But I did not expect that to show up that easy. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to connect. Okay, promising so far. I do have OBS Studio plugged in. So I'm going to go ahead and try to set up OBS Studio. All right, so as you can see above, the USB streaming from my local computer to my cloud computer is working. The webcam is working, but as you can see, it's very slow and it's dropping a lot of frames, which points to a bandwidth issue, not really a flaw in the program itself. I don't know if the webcam is streaming uncompressed, so it might be streaming a ton of data, or if somehow Hamachi might be limiting the data flow in some way with how they network the two computers. I'm not really sure what the point is here, but it definitely does point to a bandwidth issue. All in all, the program does work, so the project itself does work and it still has some life. I will be continuing to work on this project and hopefully we'll have an update pretty soon as I try to find a workaround for this. I am trying to stream 1080p video, which if that was compressed, it should be completely fine to go over my internet because I have like a 25 megabit per second upload at my house. However, but if it's streaming uncompressed 1080p straight from a webcam, that could be a lot more data than what my connection can sustain. So it could be the fact that it's streaming it uncompressed, which normally a USB device would be fine to do because it's physically plugged into my computer, or it could be the way, or it could be how the Hamachi VPN somehow limits the data. I know with VPNs you definitely do get latency, and a little bit of latency I'd be fine with, but it's the the ton of frames that it's dropping. You don't get fluid, seamless video at all. So all in all, the core technology works. I am able to access my devices. Certain devices like printers and devices that aren't streaming a ton of data back and forth, or well, just up, I guess, should function just fine, as the core technology seems to be flawless. The video isn't ever completely cutting out. It literally just looks like it's a bandwidth issue, whether that's, like I said, due to it's streaming uncompressed video or something with the VPN. All right, so all in all, I'm going to label this project as a general success, simply because the core underlying technology seemed to work great, and this program has some great features over some of its competitors that are cheaper alternatives. The ability to actually limit what you're sharing is amazing. I do like that functionality, and it worked flawlessly. All you have to do is just choose which devices you want to share, and those are the ones that show up. You don't have a list of everything, which does give you some extra level of security, especially if you're just sharing this with all the computers on your network. All in all, the core technology itself seemed to work fine too. The video never completely dropped out. I didn't get disconnects. Like it didn't, the webcam never disconnected from OBS, and I had to reconnect it. So that wasn't really an issue there. Just everything seemed to point to bandwidth constraints. So I will be looking into that deeper to see if that's because the webcam is streaming uncompressed video over the internet, or if it seems to be more on the VPN side, and see if I can find a solution to that. And we'll definitely do a follow-up video on that in the near future. So if you liked this video and found it helpful or otherwise enjoyable, give it a big like. I greatly appreciate that. Also, smash that subscribe button if you're not already an existing subscriber to stay tuned for more great videos from Provoking Tech, and hopefully the follow-up video to this in the near future. Thanks for watching, guys, and until next time, Zach out.